I'm able to work as commissioner with our schools to address that issue and to hold people accountable. And I feel like I've got that authority or power already. I'm sure the football rules committee will feel the need to add another section into the rule book and give our officials one more thing that they're, asked to monitor, which is unfortunate.
Right in the middle of the holiday season, good to be joined by MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy for another episode of the A Game Show. And sir, good to have you on. And it's that weird time where crossover season is done. We're in the middle of the holiday season, so everything just seems still a little bit of a jumbled mess all at the same time, right?
Yeah, the countdown to 2025 is on, and we're wrapping up the fall sports season. Some NCAA play still left, and winter sports kicking off. And we joke around a lot, Chris, but we'll be back together soon, and it'll the basketball tournament will be right around the corner. So it's a fun time of year, and good to be with you.
It's one of those times of year, too, where fall is pretty much done. Like you said, there's some NCAA games and contests still going on. Winter is kind of gearing up, but there'll be this little bit of a lull, too, kind of I guess everybody can recuperate a little bit in between with the holiday break here coming up. A couple of days for maybe you to get away for maybe a day or two to shut your phone off. Maybe. Who knows? But you look at, I don't know, do you get to shut your phone off? Is that even possible?
No, I don't shut it off. I'm always available, but I do try to find moments around Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year's, where I can be focused on family and doing some things other than cheering on the MIAA.
Now, I know Division Two does a pretty good job of that, of kind of leaving some of those dates open for that. But before we get into the winter sports too much, just looking back at the fall sports season, what are your overall takeaways from this year? Because a lot of good programs in multiple sports, not just we talk about football a lot, but I mean just across several sports, a lot of good showings this year.
Yeah, and I think that's the word, Chris. Good. It wasn't a great fall for the MIAA, and I guess we have a chance here in the next week or two to turn it into a great fall. We'll see, how things play out in volleyball, women's volleyball. But, a very solid, good showing by MIAA schools in all sports. Cross country, we had a couple of schools, men's and women's, finish in the top 10. Two teams in the football playoffs that, won games and didn't not playing their best at the end of the year, and not the usual showing that we have in the playoffs with competitive games in our region. But we've still got UCM that's playing in a bowl game, the Heritage Bowl in Corsicana, Texas. So we had three teams in the playoffs. We may have the Harlan Hill. We may be able to keep that in the conference. We'll know about that in a few days. Women's soccer, we were right there. University of Central Missouri lost in a tough double overtime battle to Minnesota State. That game goes, could go either way. We've got four schools that are playing this weekend in Minnesota for a women's NCAA regional volleyball championship. We've got hopefully a shot to have one of those teams make a run and get to the Elite Eight. So it was a good fall by MIAA standards. And that's the thing, Chris. You and I were talking about this a little bit before we started the A Game show here, that the expectations are high. The expectations are high among fan bases in the communities where our campuses are located. Expectations are high for the conference. Every postseason event that we're playing in, we're getting the other team's best shot. They want to beat the MIAA schools. They And with that comes, the high expectations, a lot of pressure, and you're not going to be able to perform at that elite level every game, week to week to week. And, as I mentioned, unfortunately in football, we had a couple of schools that weren't playing their best football at the end of the season, and got beat by two very good teams in Ferris State and Harding.
You look kind of looking ahead now a little bit. We talked about kind of the break coming up with Christmas and New Year's. There's a few games here and there, but for the most part, Division II allows student athletes to get away for a few days and kind of recover and recoup from not just their sport, but also just from the academic schedule that they have. As you look ahead to this winter season, what are you excited about most when you look at the winter sports in the MIAA?
Well, I guess the early season, the national polls, whatever you can make of that, think we're going to be right there again in wrestling and men's basketball and women's basketball. Washburn in men's basketball, they have a great team. They're, I think, ranked in number 3 in the nation in the most recent Basketball Coaches Association poll. Women's basketball poll came out yesterday. We had 3 teams in the top 10: Fort Hays, Northwest, Pittsburgh State. Wrestling, University of Central Oklahoma is the defending national champ. UCO and Nebraska Kearney are both in the top 5 preseason rankings for NCAA Division II wrestling, and we know how good our indoor track and field teams are. And Pitt State and others will be right there at the national meet in February. So I think, again, expectations are very high, that we're going to have teams that are making a run and doing everything they can to bring home that national championship trophy. And that's the thing that makes it fun, Chris, is that we're in a very tough conference. We're in a very tough region. There really are very few nights off for any of our teams. Every game's a battle. It's really hard to win on the road in the MIAA in basketball, and we're going to see a lot of great basketball, wrestling, track and field events, especially after the first of the year. So, it's why we do what we do, to give these student athletes a chance to compete and play at the highest level, give them everything they need in support from the campus and from the conference office, and then sit back and watch how they do. And we'll have some fun doing that this winter in the MIAA.
Like you said, it'll be the March Madness and the MIAA Madness before we know it, because we're talking about the preview now for the winter sports season, and we'll blink and it'll be March, and we'll be saying, wow, all right, we're already in March. So
Yep.
I'll have to look forward to after Christmas and New Year's as well.
You bet. And then, we'll be in March, and we'll be talking about these great MIAA spring sports and where we're at, and we'll just go through it all again. It really does make the academic year go so fast. Having teams that are competing at the highest level and doing really well. Once our conference season finishes, really makes it fun, and it makes it go by fast every season during the academic year.
Well, regardless of what season it is, there's always those rivalries that everybody gets up for. Northwest Missouri Western already played once this week in basketball. You have Emporia, Washburn, rivalries like those as well. But at the Division I level, rivalry weekend last weekend maybe got the better of some programs with the flag planting at midfield, and gosh, I think it was 3 or 4 different games on Saturday where heated rivalries got the best of, I think, of some football programs across Division I and the Power 4. Just not a great showing, probably. I think there's a lot of what happened. Probably for a lot of athletic departments and a lot of conference offices across Division One, too. Of the flag planting's been a thing that's been building for a few years now. It reached a boiling point for several. Just it's not a good look for college football. I mean, yeah, it gets more eyes on it, I guess, if you want to say that, but it brings not good attention to it either at the same time.
Yeah, really disappointing, and a very bad look for all of intercollegiate athletics. Sportsmanship is intended to be such a big thing in intercollegiate athletics. It's something we teach. It's something we expect. You would hope that we wouldn't have to have a rule that prevents a team from, planting a flag on the home team's logo, but we probably will. And the issues in Division One and what we saw play out, could be a very dangerous situation. We saw pepper spray used at the Ohio State Michigan game. And the thing, that makes it even more dangerous is in Division One with the number of fans at these events and, rushing the field or the court after a basketball game, and, the danger that puts fans in, and our student athletes and our coaches and our officials. And we just need to get a handle on this. We've had some issues, Chris, in the MIAA. Fortunately, the way I feel is the way that our athletic directors and our presidents and our coaches feel. And in every incident I've had cooperation from the schools involved to whatever they need to do to hold people accountable and make sure we're learning from these issues and trying not to repeat them again. But we've had a few issues during my time as commissioner with visiting teams, not trying to plant a flag, but dancing and celebrating on the team's logo. I think we've had some issues even at Missouri Western with with their bell. A tradition for Missouri Western to ring the bell, after a win, and a visiting team trying to do that after they beat Missouri Western. And I think what's at the heart of all of this, Chris, is that we need to do a better job in continuing to help our student athletes and our coaches understand not only how to be gracious in defeat and to be a good sport when you get beat, but how to be gracious when you win. How to handle winning in a way that allows you to demonstrate, you know, um, how good a sport you are. That's why we play these games. The competition that's involved in intercollegiate athletics. At the heart of it is an educational opportunity, and using those experiences to help prepare young people for whatever waits for them after they graduate. And we certainly don't want people that we're interacting with in the business community, that don't know how to act or behave when they close a big deal, or when a big deal doesn't go their way. The expectations that we have as a society and how we interact with each other in business or in our community is the same that we should be looking for from our student athletes when they're involved in these games. So, the things we saw Thanksgiving weekend, and heightened awareness because these are national TV games that a lot of people are watching, but it was not a good look for intercollegiate athletics. And I hope the MIAA student athletes that were watching that saw how teams were handling themselves that had lost, and saw how teams were handling themselves that had won, and made some decisions about how they would act in those situations in the future. But we've got to use that as a teachable moment, because it wasn't good for anybody, any of the teams, any of the schools involved this past weekend.
And there's always emotions in athletics. I mean, that's part of the competitive nature. Tempers run high, emotions run high, big game feel. But you're right. There's that balance, and I think from a media perspective, it's when I first started. Gosh, I don't want to age myself, but whatever, doesn't matter. Doesn't feel like I've been doing it for this long, but 10 years ago, the cooling off period after games. I mean, it was, I got a deadline. Let's go. Like, because, I've got a deadline I got to meet. But at the same time, it's those cooling off periods are huge, especially because you're talking about 18 to 23, 24-year-olds that just played, 60 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is, how many sets. They're still emotionally drained. They're fired up, whatever happens. You don't want them in a situation where those emotions get the better of them, because we see who they are normally, and sports, good or bad, can bring out the worst in people in that nature because of just the adrenaline rush that can be there too.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just kind of misguided toughness, and I'll use the example, the pregame coin flip in the Nebraska Iowa game, or the Nebraska captains. These are captains. These are the leaders of the team, are at midfield, and they refuse to shake the hands of the Iowa players. That's terrible. That's as bad a look as planting a flag on someone's logo after a victory. To start a game, to start competition was such a disrespectful act. And the handshake lines and all of that after games is exactly what you're talking about, Chris. The opportunity after competition, to come back into this this normalcy of okay, we just fought a great battle on the field, and we'll congratulate each other on the competition, and we'll get busy preparing for the next game. And we need that spirit and attitude to come back in intercollegiate athletics, because the things we've seen lately really caused me concern of what we're teaching and what we're telling people is okay, and the lack of holding certain individuals that aren't exhibiting expectations of sportsmanship, situations where they're not being held accountable. All of those things need to be fixed and to change quickly.
Like you said, I'm sure we're going to see some type of flag planting rule, or it's going to be some type of penalty on the next game, not just a fine against the institution or anything like that. I'm sure they're going to make it to where you're not just losing money or fined by the conference or something. They're going to make it to where it's going to cost you on the field as well. So I'm sure that rule will probably be in effect as soon as the season's over, probably for next year anyway, at least at the Division I level, maybe across all divisions of NCAA, at least football.
Yeah, and I think, I personally feel that I've got authority under our sportsmanship provisions already in the conference that, if something like that's happening at the end of a game or before a game, I'm able to work as commissioner with our schools to address that issue and to hold people accountable. And I feel like I've got that authority or power already. But, I'm sure the football rules committee will feel the need to add another section into the rule book and give our officials one more thing that they're asked to monitor, which is unfortunate. But however we need to address it, however we need to fix it, we need to do so quickly.
Let's go to a little bit more of a happier note maybe for you than talking about flag planting and issue of sportsmanship at the Division I level. MIAA Network revenue seems to be on the upward trend for you guys. And we're in the day and age where, from a TV perspective, we don't know what the next 5 years are going to look like from a TV station. We thought everybody was cord cutting. Most people did. But now all of a sudden, maybe we're going back the other way because of how many different options there are from Paramount and Netflix and everything. But from MIAA perspective, things seem to be on the up and up, don't they?
They sure do. When we look at where we're at right now with our MIAA network revenue, comparing this year to where we were last year at the end of the fall sports season, and we're about 15% higher in net revenue to the conference. And as you know, that all gets distributed to our member campuses. And so the network continues, Chris, to be a great revenue stream for our athletic departments. The athletic departments continue to invest in enhancing and improving their broadcasts, and we continue to attract and find new fans, more and more fans. Our media partner Huddle continues to be very pleased with their partnership in the MIAA. They, I think when we signed our agreement, we were entering into a 5-year relationship where they were hopeful that we could maintain or sustain the numbers that we had, and we continue every year to grow and increase and get better. And it just, I think it reinforces the decision this conference made several years ago, Chris, to, we had a fork in the road. We could give away all of this for free and not try to really do anything better. Continue to have like one camera at a basketball game and let a microphone pick up the PA announcer, or we could try to sell it and have people buy subscriptions and put it all behind a paywall, and year after year after year enhance our minimum standards that must be met of what it takes to broadcast a basketball game, a football game, a baseball game. And it's paid off. It's paid off big time. There's no conference that's managing a subscription-based network generating the type of revenue that our MIAA member schools are. It's a true benefit of membership. When you've got schools that are getting double, triple, some cases quadruple the checks back from the MIAA network that they're being asked to pay at the beginning of the year in membership dues, that's a win. That's a conference that you want to be a part of. I continue to be very pleased, and I know Huddle is. Chris continues to find new ways to promote the MIAA. They have such a huge reach. They have a worldwide reach. They connect with hundreds of thousands of prospective student athletes all over the world, and more opportunities that we can get those prospects and their parents to know about the MIAA, discovering that through the MIAA network, learning about our schools, learning about our programs. It becomes a huge recruiting tool as well.
You talk about recruiting tool. I guess there's an announcement that, we saw the MIAA football game of the week, but I think there's another announcement that you're excited to make too.
I'm making it right now. Breaking news, Chris. The football TV game of the week on 38 The Spot in the greater Kansas City metro area did so well that we've entered into a partnership for men's and women's basketball with 38 The Spot. Beginning in January, we'll start with a men's basketball game, Washburn at Emporia State on Saturday, January 4th. And then every Saturday in January and throughout the month of February, there will be either a men's or a women's MIAA basketball TV game of the week on 38 The Spot. As you know, that gets picked up or syndicated into a number of the communities where we have MIAA schools. Mm-hmm. It's an independent station, and they've been very pleased with the ratings. Chris, I tweeted out a few, reports each week about the ratings and how some of our football games did against, FBS games on the CW or FS1 or ESPN2. And what we saw consistently week to week to week in football is that fans that had access to the 38 to spot, they were choosing to watch an MIAA game over a game involving the Mountain West or a Big Ten matchup or an ACC game on the CW. They were coming and watching the MIAA games. So we're announcing that today about the basketball TV game of the week. And the other thing this does, Chris, is that because of the regular season Saturday games in January and February, 38 The Spot has agreed to broadcast live the men's and women's basketball championships in March at the MIAA tournament from Municipal Auditorium. So that's part of this basketball game of the week package on 38 The Spot. 5 men's regular season games, 4 women's regular season games, culminating in the broadcast of the men's and women's championship games on television.
And like you said, it's a combination of more exposure for the student athletes, but it goes back to what you said also about the MIAA Network too, where it's getting more eyes for potential student athletes and their parents to see what the level of play is in the MIAA. We're talking about before we came on and recorded this, that if MIAA basketball fans don't know, Drake University, where Ben McCollum is, he took 4 guys that are Division II, and they're playing really good basketball at Drake, that Division I level. We see it time and time again across sports. Just because they're Division II, so to speak, that doesn't mean they aren't top athletes either. And I think things like this highlight that too, that don't look down on Division II. Yeah, Division I in a lot of places has probably next tier level talent, but it's not always the case either.
Well, it's showcasing not only our sports programs, but our institutions. So hosting these games, they basically have a 2.5 hour, 3 hour public service announcement about, even if you're not going to go to Washburn or Missouri Western or wherever in the MIAA to play sports, these games are helping to connect with prospective students. But to your point, Chris, related to intercollegiate athletics and how these TV games of the week can be such a huge recruiting tool for our member schools that get to showcase their stadiums, their basketball arenas, their coaches, the history of their programs. Josh Looney, the former athletic director at Missouri Western, and before that had played football at Washburn University. He told me right when we signed the TV deal for football, he said, Mike, that's great that's back. When I was in high school trying to figure out where I wanted to go and play, I remember watching those MIAA TV games of the week, and it taught me or showed me how competitive and good MIAA football was. And, we'll do the same thing in basketball. And we want to connect with people that may not know a lot about our conference, help introduce them to our schools, help them see this level of competition. Just because we've got a Roman numeral 2, next to our institution's names, in many cases, it doesn't mean second best. In many cases, as you described, Chris, we've seen student athletes that could compete well at the D1 level that choose a Division II experience for a number of reasons. And that's what we're trying to do with these TV games and the expansion of our network, continue to spread the good news about the MIAA and Division II athletics.
The MIAA basketball TV game of the week starting in January, which means you can have a little bit of time here before that to catch up on some sleep, like I'm sure you might be able to do for a couple of weeks before we get into. I'm just really looking to, I guess, for my days off. Maybe I'm just thinking about that more than anybody else is.
Well, you deserve it more than anyone. I know your schedule. I know how many high school and college events and pro events that you're at every week, and you and I both will enjoy some time off. But yeah, exciting time in the MIAA with this crossover season ending and finishing up the fall season and getting the winter season up and running.
And then a real quick programming note before we get off here, as you guys can probably tell, we're probably going to take a few days off here for Christmas and New Year's, but we should have one more episode we're trying to get in here before the end of 2024. Then we'll be back in 2025 with, I say this, but it'll go pretty fast. We'll have a whole other slate of episodes that will be here before we know it, and then we'll look at the calendar and be like, oh, it's April, and here we are. So, Mr. Mike, Racy, thank you for the time as always.
Anytime. Great to see you, Chris. Thank you.